Welcome to the Dr. DigiPol Show. I am Alan Rosenblatt, your host, aka Dr. DigiPol. It's really great to see everybody here. I hope you're all queued in. We got people lined up in Shindig. We've got our guests in the queue here, and I'm going to get them up on screen momentarily. And I imagine we have a whole bunch of people watching on Facebook Live as well. So here we go. Today we're going to be talking about on-demand digital political ads and the rest of the whole online advertising world for digital politics. With me today is my guest, Mark Jablonowski, who is the CTO and co-founding partner of...
Not a founding partner, but a partner. I'll take the extra credit, though.
Okay, yeah, partner at DSPolitical, which is one of the cutting-edge online ad firms for the Democratic candidates across the country, as well as other types of clients. Mark has a whole litany of experiences, including having been the Chief Technology Officer at the Presidential Inaugural Committee, which meant that he's the one that did all that fancy programming that made it really easy to participate, regardless of whether you were there or not, for Obama's last inauguration. So welcome to the show, Mark.
Thank you very much. We're happy to be here.
Well, I'm glad to have you here. So let's start off by just tell us a little bit about what is DSPolitical and you know, what was its initial conception and claim to fame?
Of course. So DSPolitical is a voter file targeted digital ad network for Democrats. What that means is DSPolitical will target users, and in this case, users are voters, wherever they go online based on their registration or modeling built on top of a voter file. So principally, we serve display, video pre-roll, and social ads. And the display and pre-roll ads, we like to sort of give the analogy of shopping at Amazon.com. You know, you go and you purchase that pair of shoes, or you're about to purchase that pair of shoes. You put it in your cart, but then you don't purchase, you don't convert. And when you go around the internet, whether you're on ESPN.com or the New York Times or any other random site, you see that pair of shoes follow you around. Right. And so that's going to be remarketing that Amazon is using. We do something very similar to that, but instead of the voters having to take an action like visit a candidate website, we are taking their information from the voter file, matching it online, and we are able to target them wherever that voter goes online based on that information. So really, it's a great way to engage with your potential voters online. You can have all the specificity that you have with direct mail, and you can have all the richness of a TV spot if you're doing video pre-roll or some social engagement that way. So, you know, it's really, really effective. We've seen this work well for both persuading voters as well as mobilizing voters for get out the vote efforts.
So I imagine if I went to a candidate's page, I guess in this case, if we went to a Democratic congressional candidate or presidential candidate's page, obviously the cookie that might get set on my computer would mean I'd be more likely to see ads, certain kinds of ads from that candidate on other websites. What other type of behavior or website visits would you be looking for in order to target those kinds of ads?
Absolutely. So you just mentioned sort of a traditional retargeting ad, which is something that we build into as components of our advertising campaigns, but really the bread and butter of what we do is going to be taking offline data, so the voter file or any other offline data sources that our clients would have, and bringing that data online, making it targetable and available online. And we do that through some traditional onboarding partners, such as LiveRamp or Newstar, as well as some other proprietary technologies that we've developed with Fortune 100 companies, as well as some other leading ad tech companies. But the way this specifically works, you take the voter file, which has a registered address. It's a known address. And when you're going around and shopping online, you're ordering a new sander at the HomeDepot.com, and you're having it shipped to your house. Somewhere buried in the terms and conditions of HomeDepot.com, it says we're going to drop a cookie on your computer, and we are going to ultimately resell the relation of the cookie identity to your home address or your shipping address. We work with these onboarders, again, similar to or including LiveRamp and Neustar, that purchase these cookies and the relationships in bulk. And as an independent third party from us, in a privacy compliant way, matches the data that we're bringing in, so the voter file, deterministically to the data that's provided by the cookie suppliers, and provides us with a segment back of the cookie IDs that we are going to be bidding on when we're trying to place a digital ad buy.
Can you go a little bit more detail into the privacy? Because I'm sure people have listened to what you were saying. They're going, wait, the campaigns know I bought a sander at Home Depot, but it's not really like that, is it?
Yeah, it's not. That's absolutely correct. So, there's sort of two parts to this. One, campaigns have so much data about you already in the offline world. You have party registration, voting frequency, if you've answered a poll or responded to a survey in a certain fashion. There's a mass of data that is really sort of the platinum level CRM data that any commercial company would like to have on their consumers, that campaigns have been building up for years and well over a decade at this point. But when we are working in the online world, we actually are working with considerably less information than that. We have much less access to private information because of this onboarding process. The digital ad industry is largely regulated by a self-governing body that sets the privacy regulations, and one of the principal ones is the fact that we are not, as an advertiser, ever able to know who is actually seeing an ad or who was visiting a website. So in no way does DSPolitical or any of our clients have access to the individual people that purchased that sander at Home Depot, or even know where a single person has gone online. Instead, when we take the offline data through these third-party match partners, we give them the list of people that we're trying to find online, and they anonymize that data. And they give us a segment of cookie or mobile device ID data that is derived from the offline data that we provided. So what that means is it's a one-way funnel. We know that the online segment contains people that were exclusively in our offline data file, but we don't know exactly who those people are. We just know that if you were in the offline data file, you had the potential to be online, but never can we reverse engineer that to say that Joe Smith visited this site or Joe Smith has this action online.
So I do know that it's possible to append to email data and voter file data commercially available data similar to what you might get out of some of the TransUnion or Experian, and that data may actually include whether or not they have a mortgage, how large their mortgage is, who owns the mortgage, and that kind of material, and that can come into the data file, which would, I mean, if a campaign grabs that kind of data and then sorts their file based on that kind of information and hands you a list, are you able to target that list accordingly?
Yeah, so again, we are able to target any list that's provided to us in the offline world. So if you are a customer who is bumping your data up against Experian or any other data provider out there, and you're looking to get the mortgage append or the catalog append or the magazine append, you can provide that list of people to us. It really doesn't matter to us who it is that we're targeting in terms of what the segment is, as long as you're not targeting sensitive categories. But when we, again, take that data and move it online, we don't have any idea who the individual people are or what their actions are online. It's just the way to create that anonymous segment.
So
now, there's another way.
There's
go ahead.
That gets on, and then what happens once the ads are being served is anonymized.
That's correct. We also have the ability to work with commercial data providers in the online world. So data that has already been matched, and this can be behaviorally matched, or this can be from other offline data sources. But you have companies like Experian, BlueKai, Oracle, the list goes on and on, that are data aggregators, and they have lists and segments of people that have been shopping for a mortgage online recently, to continue your example. And we would be able to overlay that data on top of our voter data should we ever want to, to really get that Venn diagram of the people you're trying to reach. So if you come to DSPolitical and you're looking to target someone who is, a cat lover, I'm sure we could find a cat lover data segment for you and put that on top of the data you're bringing to us. But again, this is all going to be in an anonymous fashion. We're not in ever a position where we're saying, Joe Smith is a cat lover.
Now, if somebody sees the ad and clicks on it and takes the action or goes to the campaign website, does the campaign know that they came from that ad and which ad they came from and where that ad was served when they clicked on it?
Yeah, absolutely. Our some of our clients, especially our more sophisticated clients, are setting up very granular level reporting packages that allow them to, through UTM source code tracking as well as other deeper integrations, figure out exactly what ads are performing well, what is, giving you that good ROI, and how do you continue investing in it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, that's an important thing to understand. The anonymity, and that it's your decision to click on the ad and share that information with the campaign that gives the campaigns ultimately the knowledge of who you are. And then once you start taking action on their site, of course, you're telling them everything.
You're inside their garden and you're volunteering information at that point.
And this is,
at the same.
yeah. Go ahead.
I was going to say, at the same time, we maintain blacklists. If people request to be taken off, we make sure we scrub them from future blasts. We have, all of the industry safety measures in place to ensure that, if you don't want to be targeted with a digital ad from us, you won't be. But this is something that, the question is, do you want a relevant ad or do you want just a completely random ad? And I would argue that the internet experience is better with a relevant ad.
Well, this is the constant rub is, do I want to be unknown and get ads that aren't necessarily in my interest range, or do I want to be known and get ads that I would be interested in? So there's a value proposition there, anonymity versus value.
And this is something that gets, far outside of the digital advertising realm. One of my go-to examples is the Easy Pass. You want the convenience of skipping the line at the toll booth. You have that Easy Pass, but then you have that trail of where you've been, and that's tied to your credit card statement, which provides other information. So it's the convenience of modern life and the desire for anonymity is really something that does not coexist very well.
Yeah. Before we switch gears to democraticads.com, I want to ask kind of a question with regard to regulations, laws. There's a set of expectations and laws that govern commercial advertising, and what you do is not commercial advertising; it's political advertising, and in that respect, it has extra special protections and exemptions under the First Amendment. So can you explain that and both what exemptions you have and whether or not you take advantage of those or follow the rules of commercial anyway, just because it seems to be the respectful thing to do?
Honestly, we really follow the rules of the commercial regulations pretty much across the board, and it gets down to some really sort of nitty-gritty type of things where just the paid-for-by disclaimers that are required by law in certain jurisdictions but not others for political advertisements. We require a paid-for-by message on all of the ads that we're running, not so much because we are needing this information, but because our technology partners are not going to be up on this jurisdiction requires it, but this one doesn't. So they just have a blanket requirement across the board that you have to be coming with this information. One thing that is really interesting that really we do take advantage of, and that's really the underpinning of our entire business, is the fact that this is voter file information that we are using, which is provided by the secretaries of state for every state out there. And how you acquire it from the secretaries of state varies. Some of them, it's a financial transaction, some of it's free to download. But we are specifically allowed to use this information for political communication and targeting, but we are not allowed to use this information for any commercial advertising or lead generation. So, the information is available specifically for the political sector.
Right. And I would also add that while there may be laxer rules for what you can do with, in some respects, with political messaging through advertising than commercial messaging through advertising, you don't want to rattle the voter. You don't want them
No.
to see you behaving differently than what they would expect from normal ads in a way that makes them feel a little creeped out.
Yeah, we want to have a friendly interaction with every end user, every voter. We never want to scare or startle someone. And so, we make sure that we're utilizing the technologies that allow us to get in front of them and get the message shown in a, relevant manner. But we never want to cross that boundary, even if that would be something that would be permissible.
Yeah, I think that one of the big rules of thumb to recognize is that in commercial advertising, they could hit 100 million people, and if they get a 0.1% success rate and piss off the rest, they make money. In politics, you don't want to anger the people that you don't convert because you want to try to convert them again later, because ultimately they all walk into the polls, or they all should walk into the polls. Not as many.
Absolutely. And if there are, I don't want to say missteps, but if there are people that are startled or don't realize that this sort of technology exists, that will oftentimes get back to the candidates, and they will have to field questions about this, and then they come to us asking, why is this happening? And we just want it to be a good experience for everyone involved, whether it's our client or the voter.
Yeah, I think I mean, for candidates, I think they want to preserve a good reputation, even for the people that decide not to vote for them.
Of course.
That's the nature of the game, which is very different from the commercial sector. We hear a lot of talk these days about how, we need a businessman or we don't need a business. But really, the bottom line is that politics and government are not the same as businesses, and the behavior and the expectations and the relationships it has with the people by necessity have to be different, have to be more inclusive, have to be more respectful.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about democraticads.com. My understanding is this is not completely, but a fairly self-serve automated process.
Yeah, I mean, it's a completely self-service option. And so what this is, democraticads.com is DSPolitical's desire to bring this technology that we've been talking about, this digital, highly targeted, voter file targeted digital advertising down to campaigns of any level and any budget. So the technologies that we've been talking about are inherently incredibly expensive. We have millions of dollars of commitments to our partners to even have access to some of these technologies. And through our scale, our economies of scale, we've really made it a priority to allow candidates that don't have a large budget and would not have the ability to go out and do this on their own with $20,000 or $50,000 campaign or ad buy, to log in through a self-service platform, democraticads.com, where it literally just guides you through the process. You log in, you say, when do I want to run my ads? What is the target universe that I want to reach out to? So we give you the option for likely voters, a persuasion universe, a get out the vote universe. We really try and remove a lot of the complexities that we deal with on some of our larger managed service campaigns, and just let the end user get down to the very meat of the digital ad campaign. From there, you select if you're going to be doing a display campaign, so traditional display advertising, video pre-roll, so the ads that roll before your cat video on YouTube or your local news station, or social, so Facebook and Instagram. We provide an interface that gives you an instant quote, shows you exactly how many impressions you're going to get across which display mediums and for how much money. At that point, we either let you upload creative that you have had designed in-house, or we go through a template system that allows you to even build display ads right there by uploading a headshot and punching in your call to action, your button text and disclaimer text. And from there, you can pay by credit card or PayPal. So the whole process really takes less than 10 minutes. If you have the ad assets ready to go, you can be up and running with no time at all, going and talking to a very specific demographic in the geography that you're running for. So I realized I failed to mention at the very first part, we ask you what what office are you running for? Where do you want these ads shown? So we work with state house, state senate, county, all sorts of political geographies that are pretty small. And then we overlay the voter file information on top of that. So you're not having any waste when you're doing this type of advertising. You know that all of your ads are serving to the registered voters that are potentially persuadable inside of your own district. And we've had some great success with this with local races, state house races from Maine to Florida to Alaska, where they are for small budgets able to actually move the needle with digital ads.
And because you're dealing with lists, and I'm not sure if you got into the integration with NGP Van, but because you're allowed, the campaigns are basically pulling lists from their own voter files. They can target these ads as specifically to a congressional district, to a county, as you mentioned, to a city, I would imagine even a ward within a city.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely correct. So the workflow for our traditional buying process through democraticads.com, we have certain geographies that are set, and then the 3 defined audiences that we have mentioned already. And that really just goes through with very, very little customizations. But as you mentioned, on September 15th, we made a major announcement where we integrated with NGP Van, which allows anyone in the Democratic Party, NGP Van is the central hub of information for Democrats up and down the ballot. They have tens of thousands of users. Virtually every campaign in the country utilizes NGP Van. And from inside the NGP Van interface, you're able to build a list of the exact supporters you want to target, whether the supporters are people you've knocked on their door over the last 2 weeks, or some new information that your pollster has told you is the key to winning your race. You're able to select those people in your instance of Van, and with one button, click the advertising tab, which will send your list from NGP Van to democraticads.com and allow it to be targeted for voter file targeted digital ads.
Can you give us a couple examples of how this has worked?
Yeah, I mean, just as I was mentioning, we've seen candidates who are working with the pollsters and coming up with that exact right persuasion universe, and they are wanting to make sure they get X message in front of Y group of voters. They will create that universe of women 30 to 45 who have voted in 3 out of the last 4 elections from the van, and send that list of users to us at democraticads.com. Again, it happens instantly. It's the press of a single button. And right from there, they get brought into the very easy flow of purchasing an ad campaign on democraticads.com. So at that point, you're just selecting if you want to run display, social, video, and uploading your creatives and setting your budget. And that's really it.
So obviously, this is the tough question for you. Who's your competition?
There are a lot of people out there that have self-service platforms that are working on bringing the long tail of the market in and bringing this great technology to all people, all candidates, no matter the size of the budget, and that's great. We encourage the competition. We really like having a strong playing field of good quality tech providers out there. But we really focus on being the best at matching offline universes to the online world, running ads against them, and of course we have the NGP Van integration, which is something that no other advertising company has.
So in that respect, no competition on the left. Is there a comparable set of resources and platforms on the Republican side?
Yeah, you have Targeted Victory on the Republican side, which runs a great shop. Every now and then we get a Republican coming to us saying, hey, we want to use your technology. DSPolitical is an ideological-based company. We only work with Democrats and progressives. So we will kick these people over to Targeted Victory. You have Audience Partners that is bipartisan, but you definitely have options depending on who what side of the aisle you're on.
Got it. That's really important. So let's take the last couple minutes here before we move on to the next segment and just say, are there any other comments you want to make? Is there any other aspect of online advertising? Like what is a typical ad campaign cost for, Congress, Senate, state delegate, governor, down to mayor, or I mean, what's the ranges that you're thinking about here?
Yeah, I mean, we work on the managed service side with campaigns that are millions of dollars that are major national independent expenditures, all the way down to, with DemocraticAds.com, the minimum buy is $500 and you can make payment by credit card. So, some interesting things with the NGP van integration, we're seeing very specific candidates running candidates for very specific geographical boundaries running ads through the integration with NGP van, such as mosquito abatement districts, which is something that we don't have the data on what the boundaries are. I'm sure we could pull it up if we needed to, but that's already loaded up into their audience that they've selected in NGP van. They broadcast that audience to us, and we're able to run ads for that through DemocraticAds.com.
So a $500 ad campaign, how many people would that reach?
It totally depends on the length of the ad campaign, the frequency that we're hitting them at. We give you sort of a calculator that adjusts in real time with DemocraticAds.com, so you can see exactly what you're purchasing based on the parameters of your campaign.
Got it. Well, Mark, I really want to thank you for taking the time to talk to us and explaining not just what you guys are doing, but the industry in general, because it really is a whole different beast than it was, a couple decades ago.
Yeah, I mean, even 2 years ago, it's incredibly different. So we're just very excited to, give Democrats and progressives the best chance to succeed online. And thank you so much for having me on.
My pleasure, and come back later, and let's maybe after the election's over, we can have you and some of your colleagues back to talk about what happened.
Sounds good.
All right, great. Thank you, Mark.
Bye-bye.
All right, we're going to move next to our trending in politics, our tip segment, and I'm going to just bring them up quickly to say hi. First, here is our producer, former White House correspondent, Ken Bazinet. Ken is, I'm trying to get him up there. And then we'll bring Ben up to say hi. Hey, Ken, how's it going?
How you doing? What should I say? What's up, Doc?
Hey, all right. Not much there. I'm going to put you down for a second, and I'm going to pick up Ben just so he can say hi, and then we'll go on to our first topic. And then we have, and where is Ben? There he is. Ben.
Dr. DigiPol.
Welcome back, Benjamin Barnett from Philadelphia. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm roving studios, by the way, just saying.
Yes, I see you have a new backdrop. It's looking very nice. Since I have you up, and you were up last week when we were talking about the Randy Rainbow, I wanted to just kind of start with an update with that and get your thoughts on it, and then we'll get Ken to chime in on it. So the Randy Rainbow video where he did basically recut the debate between Clinton and Trump with him as the moderator, and then broke into song when Trump said braggadocious, and of course did a variation on supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. So two things that are very interesting at this point. Number one is that they're closing in on 30 million views for that video. And as of today, I believe, Randy Rainbow posted that Dick Van Dyke, who sang the original song, shared the video on his own Facebook page with the quote, "creatively precocious, elegantly loquacious, clever and audacious, funny and vivacious. What a wit, good gracious, Randy Rainbow." So not only did he share it, he also gave a bit of poetry to endorse it. What do you think about this idea of being able to tap into celebrity endorsements in this process? Out of nowhere.
Sure. I mean, look, obviously that's the ultimate in endorsement in a situation like this, for sure. I mean, at the end of the day, obviously what you'll see is exponential retweet commenting in a way that like you were mentioning last week, the sort of average person just simply might take years and years to build and, build up that type of confidence. So, you know, I mean, it's a great opportunity for people to be seen and be heard. I'm not sure that having the celebrity endorsement in its singularity should mean anything, but any more than any other individual voter out there, if you know what I mean. So, you know, does simply Kim Kardashian have more, you know, political say because she has more Twitter followers, simply, in other words? You know, obviously I don't think so.
Yeah, well, you know, I mean, it's the say versus the reach, and I think if you reach more people, you know, let me
reach, you know, whereas, you know, maybe the other people simply can't because they have no reach, even though they have as much to say.
Right. All right, let's bring Ken up here and see what he has to say about this. Ken, what do you think? The ability to use the social media to tap into unexpected or maybe even hoped for celebrity resharing.
I think in the case of this video, Alan, what we're really talking about as much as anything else is creativity, humor, the ability to connect with people who may not be political junkies like we are.
Right.
You know, there is this is truly social media, if you think about it along those lines. And also, I think that given the tenor and tempo of this race, there is a need to be able to laugh legitimately from time to time. So I think that in the case of this, there's an artistic component, and I think there's a psychological or emotional component that touches people. I'll give you a perfect example. I learned about the video from my wife, who's extremely politically astute. However, she is not a political junkie. Yet there it was. She found it and she said, "You have to see this." And I said, "Alan will be asking me about this on Thursday."
Right.
I think that is a legitimately anecdotal laboratory, if you will.
Yeah, you know, this idea, you know, in this case, the Dick Van Dyke response, because this is a rewrite, the lyrics are the rewrite of a song that he made famous in the Mary Poppins movie. There's an element here, and there's an old story, and I hope I get it right, and I'm sure I'll hear from my friend if who told me this story if I don't. But there was a point several years ago when John Mayer, the musician, singer-songwriter,
now of the Grateful Dead, I might add.
Oh yes. He got himself into a bit of hot water. He did a Playboy interview, and in the interview, he dropped the N-word and got himself into a lot of trouble. And for about 2 weeks, he was being plastered on Twitter. People just really going after him, and he had 1.5 million or so followers at the time. In that 2-week period, my friend was working with a client running a campaign to stop the use of the R word, to stop people from saying retarded. Now, Ken, you and I are both from Massachusetts, and that's a word that's quite rampant in colloquial Massachusetts slang. And the idea was, you shouldn't say that because, there are people who have disabilities, and it's an insult to them to use it as a slur. There are other examples of this as well in other contexts. And so she tweeted at John Mayer, or had the campaign tweet at John Mayer, asking him to help support and retweet the link to their petition. Now, just because it was at a moment in time, first before he closed his Twitter account in frustration, when he was sensitive to this idea of using the wrong word and causing problems as a result of using it, he retweeted it within 10 minutes or so, and they picked up about 10,000 signatures on their petition. So to go to Ben's point about, does John Mayer have more say, or is his voice more important than other people's voice? Individually, no. But the fact that more people are listening to him and responding to him, I think you start to see the numbers.
We're a celebrity-driven culture, but I think we try to be inherently good people. And when you see someone correct the record and realize that they've overstepped. We're a second chance society. We have to be.
Yep.
So I think again, you have a series of circumstances that bring us there. But there's no question about it. I mean, do you remember the Kim Kardashian endorsement of Hillary Clinton? I mean, I do. I looked at it and said, I wonder if she really wants this. But in the end, in terms of name recognition, introducing Hillary potentially to a different group of voters, etc.,
Yes.
it becomes an asset.
Yeah, the
And
idea to tap into another group is really important.
exactly.
Yeah.
And since the Bill Clinton administration, the first administration that I covered as a White House correspondent, celebrities are more than intertwined in politics. We now expect them to be active. Look, what's the biggest endorsement that Hillary Clinton has received this week? I believe it's a basketball player from Cleveland named LeBron James, right?
King James, yeah, who's
And
huge, not just in sports, but on social media.
that's right. And what a great stopper for those series of stories we were seeing in the mainstream media about how the Clinton campaign was writing off Ohio. Instantly, that came to an end.
Yeah.
She is not writing off Ohio. She is competing very strongly in Ohio with one of its biggest heroes now.
Yeah, that's a very good point. The strategically placed endorsement from a superstar celebrity in a particular state. Sports stars in particular have that state-based celebrity, which is very different from movie stars, Hollywood, television, which are much more universal celebrities. Kim Kardashian doesn't have a geographic base of her supporters, but LeBron James clearly does. And in politics, where it's all about, as we were talking about with Mark, targeting, that's a really big, important thing. I got Ben chiming in with another comment here. I'm going to put him up here and get his comment. And I see I've got a question from Daniel.
Yeah. So one question that just came to mind is we're talking about worshiping celebrities and getting their numbers so we can get votes to win elections. And as we talk about that, and this sort of like popular type culture has become popular as the internet has boomed over the last 15 years or so. I was wondering, as we sit here and talk about this as almost normal, I was wondering, as we look at these trends in politics and we see this happening exponentially, where is it that we feel we might want to draw the line? Like, is it really what we want to bring into our politics? Is this sort of capitalistic celebrity culture here? I was curious to know if Ken had any comments on something like that as we sort of just accept this as we start to go forward and, as these elections become really very much about these key influencers, if I may, online, for example.
Well, Ben, I would have to say that when we think about this in terms of celebrity endorsements, it's, as we were saying, it's not just that the celebrity says it. It's about the celebrity introducing the candidate to real voters. And then in this day and age, the real voter has the opportunity to go to the candidate's home website, the candidate's social media channels. They get to start tuning in and collecting real information. But you need that sort of that impetus to get people involved sometimes. We do live in a country where a normal presidential election, only 55% of the people who can vote.
Sure. I mean, I suppose maybe to add to it is maybe it's the access question as well. Sort of, what type of access do really most people really have to celebrities? So it's one thing to follow them on Twitter, obviously, but suddenly to have, Sean Penn or, Brad Pitt deciding, who you're going to vote for president or, is something I think is, it's interesting. It's interesting that it's happening more so right now to me as I watch this election cycle than ever. And I see it slipping into the mainstream, especially in the online journalism space, slipping into the mainstream dialogue as something that candidates are okay publicly saying that they're looking for. It wasn't always that you could take Hollywood endorsements and, raise your hand as a champion with that person. So.
Well, let me say that, if the John Mayer example is any indication, social media has created an opportunity for anybody to potentially pull in a celebrity endorsement with no prior relationship with the celebrity at all, which is exactly what happened in that situation. They just tweeted at him at the right moment with the right context. So, yeah. I would get it from the audience. I'm going to bring Daniel Bennett up here because who's a regular audience member and an old friend, and he sent me the link to a movie that he says is a great one on this topic. Hey, Daniel. Unfortunately, I couldn't click on it. Hey. So tell us what's this movie you're talking about?
Well, having watched and really liked the Randy the Rainbow and just how delightful it was, and that's great that Dick Van Dyke appreciated it as well, considering how it was to my childhood, and the ability just to say that word. But I think sometimes, in my opinion, what gets lost in the mix is the world of commercial advertising and how just brutally goal-oriented it is, and where if you don't sell your product, you lose. And the problem with a lot of political stuff is that you believe that people should believe the same way you believe in order to be on board, is more ideological. And there's one of the most brilliant films on politics is No, which was made around 4 years ago down in Chile, and it is the historically based campaign against Pinochet, when essentially there was a race, where not an election, a plebiscite, where finally Pinochet said, "Okay, I'll have an election, and if people don't like me, they can vote no." And so nobody thought that there was a chance to win that because he would do whatever it needed to be. But because there were international folks, there was a little bit of a chance and an opening. And the left, or the anti-Pinochet forces, picked this commercial ad guy, and it was a real struggle for him to say, use our techniques that work so well to sell soda and crap, and stop trying to tell people Pinochet is horrible and you got to believe everything. Give them hope and sell it using the same type of song and dance. And so I think that it was a brilliant thing, and the assumption is that they used some of the actual ads from the plebiscite that were used. So I believe it's true, and I think that is a wonderful thing. And we talked on an earlier show of yours about the Between Two Ferns, and right. I just think it is so important to sometimes forget all of the the Durman strong that us political people have, and feeling that you're with us in every way, and you can't just be with us because we represent hope and love. You've got to be with us, and understand everything. So I would just really recommend this movie to folks to see what was an extremely successful campaign. They won, and Pinochet was gone.
So the movie is No, N-O, and it sounds like it's a...
No, N-O, exclamation point, sort of like Jeb.
And it sounds like a movie that the Hillary campaign should watch.
I disagree. I think their ads are fantastic, but they're what?
Their ads are, but it seemed like in the debate she's getting sucked into the attacks a little bit. Although this whole thing about who's running an insult-driven campaign, I think is it's a bit of a laugh to hear it coming.
Who do you think won? Who do you think won the debate?
The VP debate?
Yeah.
The VP debate, I think Well, I think substantively, I think Kane won. I think stylistically, Pence won. I think Pence created a situation where he calmed some of the Christian right's nerves about Donald Trump, and I think, but I think in the end, neither one of them really moved the needle tremendously. I think they both sort of did what they needed to do. I'm going to bring Ken up here. He wants to take care, Daniel. He wants to talk a little bit more about Ben's question, and then we're going to move on to another topic.
The issue of endorsements is something near and dear to my heart because I'm a recovering newspaper man or a newspaper person. Endorsements, for those of us on the platform right now, intellectuals, my case, pseudo-intellectual, I'd like to believe that no endorsement is going to sway the process that we use to make our decision. My point is that every major newspaper, and there's been an awful lot, like USA Today, has never endorsed before, but this time they've endorsed Hillary. That's a rather large statement, but I don't necessarily think that endorsements persuade voters to necessarily vote for that candidate, including in the case of celebrities and influencers. However, I do believe that it increases the dialogue, that it gets people talking, that as you know, we touched on a little bit earlier, Ben, you may introduce politics to a demographic that is not engaged, and suddenly they are. I can't imagine a person who is going to vote for Hillary because Kim Kardashian has endorsed her, but that person may be out there, but I'd like to believe that that's an outlier. Now, all of that,
Okay.
all of that said, the endorsements are used strategically by the campaigns to demonstrate momentum. And while they don't necessarily do that with all celebrities, they certainly do it. For instance, when there's a Hollywood fundraiser, Hillary uses that to her advantage. So I think that exists out there, and I think that's part of the universe. But being persuaded by an endorsement is something that's very much foreign to me. I think Karen would probably agree with us. Ben, I hope you see where I'm going with this, etc. So I hope that answers your question on the relevance and the simpatico effects of endorsements, if you will.
Well, let me bring Ben back up here. I think he has a follow-up on this. Mr. Barnett, you're up.
Yeah, it does, Ken. Thank you. And I guess what I was typing out to Alan, I'm not sure if that goes out to everybody, Al, how the chat works like that.
No.
I guess what I was seeing is the sort of the difference here, as I've been watching it, is that with the immediacy of social media and the ability for these, and I would argue that when we're talking about celebrities like Kim Kardashian, things like that, the sort of pop celebrities that haven't necessarily gained fame, outside of, for the fact that they're just famous. But I would argue that these people are being introduced to the campaign in a way that the campaign itself might not have ever been able to do. So it's possible with that, we're talking millions of reach here, by the way, tens of millions in some case. It's possible that, there is this shift that's happening in this case. Whereas if we were to read that newspaper, it's a day-to-day thing. Or a Sunday, the endorsements would come out or something on that level. It might be that, the shift is really flash forwarding how people react to these things. So, again, I guess maybe the point I'm trying to stress here is that it's possible that the campaign, in this case, Hillary Clinton's campaign, might not have been able to reach those people except through her and in this way by her endorsing.
Yep. Certainly a challenge. I'm going to bring Ken back up here because I want to switch topics a little bit now, and bring back Ken because of your experience in the news industry as a White House reporter and other experience in the news. The big debate recently has been, what is the role of the moderator at the debates? Should the moderator be fact-checking? And I think from what I've seen, it's divided, even among past moderators, divided. But one thing that has emerged, and because this is a program focused on digital politics, one thing that I've seen emerging is that several news media outlets, advocacy organizations, and just interested people are live fact-checking the candidates on social media and on their websites. So CBS, PBS NewsHour, Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, NPR, and PolitiFact are live fact-checking during the course of the debates. The campaigns, I know that the Hillary campaign is live fact-checking on their website as well during the campaign. I think Trump, to some degree, does that. I'm not really sure. haven't seen it, but I would hope that he's trying to do that as well. And this is an interesting thing, especially given the way we know people watch television now. People watch television with their smartphone or their laptop in their hands, and they're often surfing at the same time that they're watching. And now there are TVs that you can do it on the screen. And so this idea of simultaneously watching the debate and fact-checking, in a way, has supplanted the old model where you saw the audience reaction timeline at the bottom of emotional reactions as opposed to fact-checking. What do you think? Is this a good thing, bad thing? What's underneath all this?
It's a bit disconcerting. Again, I think it depends on who you are. I like to tune in directly to the debate myself, but I also have the ability to do my own fact-checking when necessary. In most cases, I have a pretty good instinct or database in my mind of what's true and what's not. But I can tell you this, and if you'll indulge me, I stream our Red Sox games. We're down here, right? So I stream Red Sox games on MLB.com. Okay. While I do that, I have the box score up, and I watch where the pitches go. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, while I can't relate to that scenario that you described in terms of politics, I live it in a different realm, if you will, in sports. So if I may, I would extrapolate that, sure, that is the new reality, that you have, your device in your hand while you are, allegedly watching and paying attention to something that fully requires, given, again, the tenor of this campaign and some of the outlandishness that you hear out there, you have to pay attention to.
So that's a really important point. To what extent is this live fact-checking going to be a mainstay of politics in presidential campaigns moving forward? And to what degree is it a function of the fact that this campaign, this election, both candidates are accusing each other of being total liars?
The latter is a big problem. The fact that the truth is secondary to the entertainment value that we're seeing out there. But as far as the digital fact-checking goes, it's a democratic market society. Clicks are money. It's in the best interest of these entities to put these things out, hoping that they get some eyeballs, quite frankly. So I don't think it's going to go away.
And this is not just true for the news media, which converts eyeballs into revenue, but even for the politicos who do this because they just care about the issues and they care about politics. The political junkies, they care about building audience and becoming, amateur pundits on their own merits. I mean, you look at, me, other people. We have large platforms on social media that allow us to speak directly to audiences that certainly rival CNN or Fox News any given hour.
Right. And why do people care about our 140 character opinions? Because they want to compare it to their own.
Right.
You know, they would rather, it's, it's all fair game, whether it's a thumbs up or, putting your armor on and beginning a joust. We saw that hugely, right, during the Democratic primaries. I mean, the wars between those two camps online, it was breathtaking.
Yeah.
And it's also quite breathtaking how it's all coming together now, because for a while there it didn't look like it would.
There's still some holdouts, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, there are a few holdouts, but when you have Bernie doing 10 events in 4 days in the breadbasket, that's the kind of stuff that obviously helps solve that problem. I don't want to get too far off of this point. Now, the most interesting fact checking that was going on, and again, I'm going to invoke my wife here because she pointed it out to me. The Donald was tweeting throughout the debate.
Yes.
And I'm not sure I would call that fact checking, right? Since facts are a casualty of this campaign. But there's another example of what is that? That's entertainment.
Yeah, I would even go so far as to say, at pretty much at the moment that Mike Pence was accusing the Hillary campaign of being an insult-driven campaign, Donald Trump was tweeting that Tim Kaine looks like a Batman villain.
That's right.
So, he's insulting while his vice president is accusing the other campaign of being the insult-driven campaign.
Yeah.
That kind of disconnect, is truly, I don't know, mind-blowing.
Scary.
Scary, yes. All right, I'm going to bring Ben up for a final comment, and then we're going to wrap it up for the day. Ken, thank you very much. And here's Ben for a final comment, and then we'll move on. Ben, you're up.
All right, that was great. Just one last comment was, remember that Trump actually announced that he was going to tweet the debate live. So it was, to me, actually an act of strategy on his part, maybe in some way to sort of, obviously this has never been done. No other presidential candidate has announced as a piece of strategy during the opposing debate or during it this, they would do this. So, again, I think as we're looking out there to keep the attention and get these type of endorsements that we were talking about, I think a guy like Trump really knows how this is done. And we'll talk about Howard Stern actually next time and his relationship with Trump, if you're interested.
I definitely I appreciate it. Thank you, Ben. I'm going to take you down so we don't get that feedback. I just think that the interesting irony is that on the one hand, Trump has this strategy of live tweeting during the VP debate, but yet his message that he's live tweeting is at odds with what Mike Pence, his VP running mate, is saying. And so the strategies seem to be there, but the implementations seem to be less than fully baked. With that said, I am going to say thank you so much for tuning in to the Dr. DigiPol Show. We are here every Thursday from 4 to 5 p.m. live, allowing you to ask questions, jump on camera. If you come in through Facebook Live, you're only going to be able to watch. If you come over to the Shindig account, you can actually get on cam and ask questions. So we would love to have you here in the main room asking questions. We'll bring you up on stage, or we'll just read your question, whichever you prefer. But regardless, after this, you can watch it again and again and again and again, because it'll be archived on Facebook immediately, and at facebook.com/Dr. DigiPol is in, as in Lucy is the doctor is in, for those of you who are old enough to remember that. And we will hopefully have an edited version for you at some point in the next couple of days. So with that, here's our outgoing music. And it's the end of the show. Take care.